I feel like one of the most universal language learning experiences is starting a new language, being really excited about it, and then completely losing motivation a few weeks later and having to start all over again. In this video, however, I'm going to give you my best tips on how to avoid that. Because motivation is great, it's amazing. But the truth is that you'll have good days and bad days, and sometimes learning a language will be the last thing you want to do. So here are the 5 things that have helped me stay consistent throughout my own language learning journey. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe, and now let's get started. Number 1, find your why. I have tried learning countless languages over the years. I have been learning languages for over 10 years now, and I think if I had to count, there would be like at least 15 languages that I tried to learn in the course of those 10 years. And let me tell you something that I learned that is key to staying consistent. That's why it's the first thing that I want to talk about is you need a good reason for wanting to learn that language. Because at least for me, I love to travel. So if I go to a country where a certain language is spoken, chances are that I will pick up that language. I'm very easily convinced. Same if I love a movie or a TV show. That has happened to me before. I loved a TV show in a certain language, and that's why I picked it up. But at the end of the day, I had no real reason for wanting to learn that language. I had no connection to that country where that language was spoken. So, for example, I started learning Turkish because of a Turkish TV show that I really loved. Same with Norwegian. I loved this Norwegian TV show called Scam when I was a teenager. But at the end of the day, I'm not planning on moving to Turkey. I'm not planning on moving to Norway. I'm never going to use those languages again, as fun as they are. I just don't really need them, you know? So whenever things got hard, and trust me, there will be a point in your language learning journey when something will be hard. You might encounter a grammar point that you don't really understand, maybe the pronunciation, like a certain sound will be very difficult for you. Whatever that might be, I guarantee you that there will be something that will make you think, you know what, why am I even learning that language? Why am I even bothering? And for me, when I didn't have any connection to those languages, I was like, actually, I don't really have to keep learning them. I don't really have to figure this thing out. I can just stop learning that language and make my life a lot easier. And that's why I'd quit. So having a strong reason is crucial if you want to succeed in learning a language. Nowadays, when I pick up a language, I ask myself, why do I want to learn that language? And if I don't have a reason, I just don't pick it up because I know that I will quit eventually. I started learning Brazilian Portuguese because I'm going to Brazil in a few months. So even on days when I don't feel like studying, I imagine myself in Brazil having conversations in Portuguese and just having so much fun and having so many great experiences. So even when I don't feel like studying, I know that it's gonna be worth it. Your reason might be completely different. Maybe you want to learn a language for school or for work. For example, when I was still in high school, it was around that time where I had to figure out where I wanted to go to uni. And around that same time, I started learning French. And I really liked it. Obviously, at the beginning, it was very, very fun. But then I decided that I wanted to go to university in France. And that gave me, it was such a huge goal. And I knew that if I really wanted to make my dream of going to university abroad come true, I had to work hard and I had to keep studying even on days when I didn't feel like it. I knew that there was this bigger goal that I was working towards. And when I tell you that this goal of wanting to go to university in France completely, it changed everything. I was on fire. I learned French so quickly. I went from 0 to B2 in 6 months, which looking back, I'm still like, how did I manage to pull it off? Especially at 17, 18. It was insane, okay? And yeah, I was just unstoppable because I knew that I had this certain deadline, that I had to pass the B2 exam by a certain time in order to be able to present my certificate to the university that I wanted to get into. And yeah, I just knew that if I quit, then my dream of going to university abroad would never come true. So I had this yeah, I had this very, very strong why that kept me going, even on days when I didn't feel like studying. And trust me, there were plenty of those. Like I'm human just like you, but it doesn't have to be for university. It doesn't have to be for travel. It can be for your career. Maybe if you learn this language, you will get to participate in new like cool projects, or you will get to travel more for work. Or maybe it's for your family. Maybe you have family members that don't speak the same language as you, maybe your grandparents. Whatever that is, just find a really, really strong reason that makes it impossible to quit. A little bonus tip that I can give you is visualize that goal, visualize your like desired outcome. So for me, I'm learning Brazilian Portuguese because I want to go to Brazil. So I visualize myself in Brazil doing like all the cool things I want to do when I'm there, and just like meeting new people, having conversations with them in Portuguese. And I created this really, really vivid mental image of what that looks like. So anytime I don't feel like studying, I just think about that, and that instantly makes me excited and makes me want to keep learning. Number two is make it impossible to fail. So going back to what I said at the beginning, you need a system. And what I mean by saying that you need a system is that you need a study plan, or at least some like goals that you are going to be working towards. I personally am not a huge fan of those like rigid study plans and planning out every single day, every single study session, or like tracking every single new like word that you learn and stuff like that. That's just not me. But I feel like if you want to stay consistent, you need some sort of a study plan. It can be very basic, but it really helps. I recently made my summer study plan, so if you are curious about that, you can check it out. I will leave the link in the description. First of all, I am not a huge fan of studying every single day, just because life can get very busy. Instead, I like setting a goal of studying 5 to 6 times a week because I feel like it gives you a little bit of flexibility. For example, maybe your plan is to study from Monday through Saturday, but if, for example, Wednesday for some reason gets really busy, that's okay. You can still study on Sunday and you still keep your streak. Another thing is, don't promise yourself that you will study for 2 or 3 hours every single day, because I feel like, at least for me, that's not very realistic. 2 hours or 3 hours is a very, very long time. Instead, what I like to do is I like to set a minimum. So in my summer study plan, because I'm just getting back into a routine, I set a goal of studying for 20 minutes. This is a good baseline to have. If I want to do more, if I want to study more, if one day I'm just in the mood to study languages for a few hours, I can absolutely do that. But if one day I don't want to study at all, then I feel like 20 minutes is still manageable because it's not that long. You can literally watch a video or listen to a podcast episode that's 20 minutes long and consider your lesson or your study session complete. If you end up doing more, that's fantastic. But I would recommend setting a minimum of like 15 to 20 minutes per day. Obviously, over time, once you get used to your study plan, you can increase the minimum to like 30 minutes, 40 minutes. I also believe that doing short sessions regularly every single day or most days of the week is much more beneficial than doing one really long study session once or twice a week. It keeps everything fresh in your memory, and your brain has the time to forget a little bit, just the right amount. And then when you review the things that you learned, you refresh your memory and solidify what you learned, right? But if you study only once or twice a week, you will constantly feel like you have to relearn the same thing over and over again. It will feel like you are making less progress because your time will be spent reviewing and remembering and relearning the things that you have already learned instead of focusing on new things. Tip number 3 is to track your progress. It just feels so satisfying when you can cross something off your to-do list or tick off a box. It may sound a little bit silly, but once you've built a streak, you just don't want to break it. That's why I really, really recommend tracking your study sessions. You don't need those like elaborate spreads, study plans, whatever. You can use a notebook, you can use even just a piece of paper. My recommendation is to put it somewhere visible. It can be on your fridge, on your wall, on your desk. I also feel like this works really well with the first 2 tips. So you've already set a minimum of, let's say, 15 minutes per day. So even on days when you don't feel like studying, you're gonna be like, okay, it's just 15 minutes, and then I get to cross this thing off my to-do list or tick off a box and keep my streak, and it will feel very, very satisfying. And then when you combine it with your strong why, you're gonna be like, okay, it's just 15 minutes. I get to keep my streak, and then I get to like work towards my bigger goal of wanting to travel somewhere or wanting to get a promotion, wanting to talk to someone from your family that doesn't speak the same language as you. So you can see that those like reasons for wanting to study, they're adding up, and it's getting more difficult to avoid your study sessions. Another thing that has helped me stay consistent is attaching language learning to something that I already do every single day. Because I feel like one of the biggest reasons why people give up on learning languages is because they don't have time. We all have like a million things to do every single day. So when you finally get back home and it's time to sit down at your desk and study a language, it's natural that you don't want to do it. You're tired, you want to relax, and yeah, it's completely normal. So instead of trying to find extra time, I try to use the time I already have. So for example, let's say that you are commuting to school or to work every single day. You can use that time to listen to a podcast episode, to watch a video, obviously not when you're driving, but if you're using public transportation, you can watch a video. You can review your flashcards from the previous day. There are honestly like countless possibilities. You're commuting anyway, so you might as well use that time, and instead of watching like random YouTube videos or listening to music, you might as well spend that time learning a language. Same goes for the gym. If you are using the treadmill or you're using the Stairmaster, whatever, you can use that time. It's another perfect opportunity to listen to something and learn something new. Or maybe every morning you sit down with a cup of coffee, maybe every evening you drink tea. It's the perfect opportunity to take 5 minutes and sit down and review something that you learned the previous day or that morning. Just find those little moments throughout the day where you can incorporate language learning. Okay, and finally, this might be my favorite tip of all, is to make language learning fun. I know that a lot of us associate language learning with just sitting down at your desk with a textbook, and it kind of reminds us of like what school used to feel like, but it doesn't have to feel that way. Language learning can be a lot of fun. This is very important because if language learning starts to feel like another chore or like homework, then you are more likely to quit. And yes, learning from a textbook is useful. I do it all the time, but there are other ways to learn a language. So you can learn through watching videos, listening to podcasts, reading books, listening to music. You can book speaking classes online. You can go to language exchanges in person and actually talk to people, meet new people, make new friends. Those are so fun. I always recommend them. And some of those things don't even feel like studying, especially on days when you are really, really unmotivated. I highly, highly recommend just watching videos in your target language. It doesn't, just choose videos about something that you're interested in. When I was learning English, I was, I think, like 14 at the time. I basically, at home, I wasn't allowed to watch anything in Polish. I was only allowed to watch things in English. And as any teenager, I was like, watching videos was the only thing that I wanted to do. So I spent a lot of time watching makeup tutorials on YouTube in English. And that's kind of how I learned English. My listening comprehension and a lot of those words that people use in everyday speech, I learned them from makeup tutorials from YouTube. So it can be a very, very, very effective way of learning a new language. And it's honestly really, really fun. You don't even feel like studying. You're just watching a video about something that you are already interested in. Another thing I always recommend are speaking classes online, because speaking is one of those skills that is most difficult to master. And obviously, speaking classes really, really help with that. But also, they are amazing because once you book a speaking class, it can be a private one-on-one speaking class, or there are many group classes online that you can also book. I feel like those can be a little bit less intimidating, especially when you're starting out. Once you book that class and you pay for it, that keeps you accountable, because if you've already paid for a class, you will be less likely to cancel it because you don't want to lose the money that you paid for the class, right? And also you don't want to cancel on someone who's waiting for you. So language learning doesn't have to feel the way it used to feel at school. It can be really, really fun. Just find something that you really enjoy, something that you're interested in, and just do that in your target language. If you really like to read books, read books in your target language. All of this is language learning. And at the end of the day, the best resource is the one that you will actually use. So don't feel like you have to use a textbook only. Textbooks are great, but they are not the only way to learn a language. Right, so that's it for today's video. I really hope you found it helpful. Let me know in the comments which tip you are going to try first and what language you're currently learning. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.